Hello everyone, my name is Martin and I'm the Director of Marketing at Evolvin and your host for today's session. Well, I'm happy to have on today's session our guest expert from Forrester Research, Glenn O'Donnell, and Sasha Gillenson, Evolvin's co-founder and CEO. Glenn O'Donnell is a Vice President and Research Director with Forrester Research, serving infrastructure and operations professionals. He is widely regarded as a top thought leader in IT service management, IT operations, and the broader social implications of technology evolution. Glenn's specialties are in data center automation and operational excellence. He is also the co-author of the CMDB Imperative and a book on CMDB best practices. Hi Glenn, glad to have you here today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Sasha Gillenson is the founder and CEO of Evolvin. Sasha was the top guru in quality at Mercury and has advised numerous Fortune 500 companies on technology and process optimization. Hello, Sasha. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Martin.
Well, so before we begin, let's welcome all the attendees and thank you for joining us. It should be very exciting. Now let's just go over the agenda briefly. Glenn will be starting with his presentation, Can Analytics Finally Slay the Silo Chaos Monster? Then Sasha will follow up with Breaking the Silos with Blended Analytics. And Sasha will then present a demo of the Evolvin system, and we'll wrap up with a dedicated Q&A session. So as I said, you can continue to present your questions throughout the presentations. So we'll like to get started right now. I'm going to hand this over to Glenn, and you can take controls.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now with this hideous-looking monster on the side. We've been dealing with this issue of silos for a long time, and as much as we all preach about destroying the silos, they still continue to plague us. And, the silos are kind of like the dreaded Hydra, where, we've got the servers, the networks, the storage, and anytime we try to chop one of the heads off, 3 more grow. It's that kind of a deal. It's really become unwieldy. And we've tried a number of things to finally get over that. In some senses, the convergence of these technologies is helping us, but it also complicates things as well because it convolutes the insight that we can get into all of this. And a lot of our challenges are just based on that, insight. We just don't have enough insight as to what's going on. In fact, we can kind of characterize it the way Donald Rumsfeld did in his most confusing yet accurate speech in 2002. And if you remember this, I won't go into all of it, but he talked a lot about these unknown unknowns, the things that you don't know you don't know. These are the things that kill you, and these are the things that you got to start to find out. You got to discover these, and you got to learn about them, because then you have some sense of control over the world around you, and you can manage that world around you. So that's really what we're chasing, is those unknown unknowns. This is the stuff that's always coming back to bite you. And it causes a lot of surprises, and surprises are not a whole lot of fun. We get too many incidents with our services, and the more complex we make the services, the more incidents we got, because there are more moving parts that can fail, and these parts are moving faster. And that makes the whole process a lot longer, not just more incidents, but it takes a longer time to resolve them. And MTTR is way too long because we wind up spending a lot of time in this phase that I call all the king's horses and all the king's men, where you call together all of your best and brightest people to figure out what's going on. It's really a waste of our smart people. We've got a lot of smart people. Let's stop the chaos and the insanity, and use this intelligence more intelligently. And by the way, the business really hates this. They hate surprises. They would like things to be boring. They don't want all of that excitement going on behind the scenes because it costs them money and it costs them customers. The business is not able to adapt if they can't handle what they got now. So the silos themselves have been isolated for a long time. And the sad thing is they're still isolated, decades after we've started talking about breaking down the silos. The server people are off in their corner, the network people are off in their corner, they build all these walls around themselves, and nobody has the ability to get unified insight as to what's going on. That's just nuts. We've got to do something about it. We got to tear down the walls. And if we tear down the walls, we can start bringing things together. We can consolidate our visibility and finally get some better situational awareness. If we have that awareness and that visibility across the silos, in fact, if there are no more silos, there's no reason to worry about that. But this is really what we're trying to do, is to get that full visibility. And it's a lot more than just pulling tools together into the dreaded single pane of glass, and I'll go into more of what we need to do here. But why is the situational awareness so tough? Well, granted, there is a lot to see. There's a lot of technology. The technology is spread all over the place, and we keep throwing more and more technology at the situation faster than we can manage it. And it does move too quickly. Now we're in a world of virtualization and cloud where your app developers are releasing code every few minutes instead of every few months. This is a reality, and we have too many tools that are inadequate. We've been piling up tools to look at this and tools to look at that, but they really haven't paid off. And I know I've been using these tools for a long time myself, and we still don't have the right visibility out of it all. But the bottom line is really about politics. All of these things are certainly inexorable. However, we make the problem a whole lot worse because of the way we operate as IT. And frankly, the business leaders are really tired of it. They're tired of all the excuses, and they're just going to take off and go somewhere else if we don't straighten this mess out. So we've got to solve the internal politics. Don't even worry about politics with the business side. We've got to deal with the internal politics within IT itself. The server people and the network people have to get along, and all of the infrastructure people have to get along with the app developers. Let's do that, and we'll certainly break down the silos. So what can you do about all of this? Well, from the perspective of the tools and the visibility, we have to stop using tools for exoneration. Most management software, monitoring included, has been really purchased for one purpose and one purpose only. I just want to prove it ain't me. And the silo mentality reinforces this. The network guy says, well, my network is fine because my tools say it's fine, so go away, it's not my problem. And that's a very destructive philosophy, and it's a philosophy that pervades the entire organization. Now, as you start breaking down and consolidating the technology itself, you can start moving away from that to an extent. But really, you got to unify the tools themselves. Get the tools ownership out of the hands of the silo people. And then there's no reason for exoneration. The goal then is let's get that unified visibility. Let's get that situational awareness and find the unknown unknowns. And then we can expand the scope of the monitoring. Internet of Things is coming. That adds a new dimension of things that you're going to have to monitor. Let's expand into cloud monitoring. Let's expand the applications and get some visibility into the hands of the app developers. There's a lot of new areas that we can and must take all of this. And you do have a lot of tools, some of which you should throw away. Let's face it. Some of the stuff is junk. Just because you paid $1 million for it doesn't mean you should keep it. Go through and look at your portfolio of tools and augment those tools. Sometimes you don't have to replace the tool. You just need something else to come along that's going to help you get the value out of that tool. And as you start unifying things and integrating these tools, you will get more value out of them. And, these last two are really important, and these are the two I'm going to hit on the most. Bring in some real analytics to look at this stuff. The reality is we're all smart people, but the world is so complex, even our smartest, our best and brightest, even in large numbers, cannot handle this. We need software to do some of the work for us, and I'll go into a lot of detail on that. And then finally, we always focus on let's fix the things that go wrong after they go wrong. how about we start looking at building things so they don't go wrong? Doing some real systems engineering. This is something we all have to really start looking at much, much harder, and I'll go into some of that. So first, analytics. What is the point of analytics? We've got a lot of noise, and within that noise is something valuable. And this collection of dots I show here does have a pattern inside that is something we would recognize, but we need an analytic tool to come along and help us separate the signal from the noise. And that pattern of dots that makes the star is on the left, and if you look hard enough you can sort of see it. But you don't see it immediately because there's so much noise getting in the way. And the analytics tools help you here, because this is how we get something that's really valuable, by getting rid of the noise. This is an old engineering situation. Your cell phone would not work if there was not electronics in there that separates the signal from the noise. Bingo. That's the way so many things work. So you've got a lot of noise, and you need the tools to help you get rid of that noise pollution. And that's what analytics is all about. And it comes in a lot of forms. You can benefit from analytics by looking at it from an incident management perspective. That's the most obvious one. Let's reduce the resolution time. Let's be more confident in how we do our triage. Should this go to the networking guy or should it go to a DBA? Well, if you don't know, you're going to be waking up the wrong person in the middle of the night. And I used to be that guy that was getting woken up, and I didn't like it. Problem management. Let's look at how we fix stuff permanently instead of always resolving the same incident. And getting some feedback into the earlier phases of the life cycle so that we can tweak and better engineer these things. That's a powerful, powerful use case for analytics. Change management. We make a lot of changes, and we're going to be making a lot more in the future, and much, much faster decisions. We need to have a lot more trust in those decisions. We fear change because we've all been bludgeoned into believing that the results are going to be negative. Why? Because the results were negative, because we goofed it up. We can do much better. And a big part of this is using the analytics to help us make the decisions. Ultimately, this leads to a higher degree of automation. We are going to automate like crazy in IT. And you cannot automate something if you don't have some way of helping you make those decisions more quickly, and in many cases, automatically. I can move this workload from point A to point B using something like vMotion. The question is, should I? And automation needs to get that extra dimension. Security is a big one. In fact, we just had a conference in Florida, a Forrester conference, and one of my security colleagues was covering this notion of analytics. And we're working very hard together to combine the analytics thinking across security and operations. The natural thing you think about there is, can we detect attacks and other intrusions more proactively? The answer is yes, we can. The analytics can do that. But we can also protect against ourselves. Very often, it's not the bad guys, it's the good guys that you got to worry about, because the bad guys do bad things very well, but the good guys who don't do things very well open the doors wide open for the bad guys to come in and do their duty. So we've got to help protect ourselves against ourselves. We all do dumb things, and if we can stop that aspect of it, we can stop a lot of these attacks. And then finally, in DevOps. DevOps is the hottest buzzword in the world right now. Everybody wants to talk DevOps, but this continuous service delivery is based a lot on information. A lot of information that has to go back into the earlier phases of the life cycle, a lot of information that's used for decisions, because a lot of this is automated, and as I said, automation without analytics really is going to create a mess. So analytics has become very, very important in the whole DevOps movement. Now, analytics can help you break the silos. That should be fairly obvious by now, but it also requires context. If you want to do real analysis, you can't just take a bunch of data and throw it into a pile, because that's what we've got here. This is all data, but what does it mean? It's meaningless because we don't have the context. The context has not been plugged in to assemble this into something that's more meaningful. So we do apply context. This is a little more meaningful, but it's still kind of nonsense. At least it's English language words, but it still doesn't mean anything until we rearrange using the proper context, and then it sounds like something that we all recognize. So it's important to get the context right. Analytics is based on context, and this is a garbage in, garbage out scenario. You've got to have the right context, or the analytics is not going to do what you want it to do. So how do you get this context, and what is the context? A lot of times it's just time. This happened at the same time as that. Okay, well that says there's a higher likelihood that something might be, these two things might be related, that there is some context between these. And you get time from event streams, you get it from logs, you get it from either trouble tickets or change tickets of some sort. There are a whole lot of ways you can get that time-based information. You can also get it through topological relationships. The most obvious of these is a network relationship. This foot bone is connected to that ankle bone, and so on and so forth. And based on those relationships, you can tell if something happens here, it's downstream from that. Well, maybe this other thing that went down is really a higher probability of being a root cause. A lot of this information will come from CMDBs. Yes, I wrote a CMDB book, but nobody wants to kill that term more than I do. I use it only because I have to, because you know what a CMDB is, or at least you think you do. But it's really this repository of information about everything. You can get it from your HR database. You want information about organizational relationships, okay? I'm in the infrastructure and operations team at Forrester. You get that from our HR database. You get it from discovery tools that can go out and look at all this stuff and, tell you that the foot bone is connected to the ankle bone. You don't have to guess because the tools can tell you for sure. And a lot of this is in the form of configuration information. Configuration about the devices, configuration about the relationships, the automation tools themselves. When vMotion does move that workload from point A to point B, vCenter knows that that workload is now over in point B, so you don't have to guess. This is where we get a lot of the context, and there are a zillion other places where you can get it. I just highlight these three. And you have to combine them because one size does not fit all, and that's a truism you're going to see apply across the board with all of this monitoring, all of the analytics, everything that we're talking about here. And by the way, change is a big one. So I put this last because I want to dig a little deeper into change. Anytime the world is falling apart around you, you ask one question, and that is, what changed? Because things just don't break anymore, not like they used to. Yes, sometimes, but most often it's because some knucklehead went in and did something stupid. And that knucklehead may be brilliant, but we're all knuckleheads. We do dumb things. If you're working through the command line interface, you're going to make mistakes. I don't care how smart you are. I've done it, you've done it, everybody's going to do it. But we can do better with that. Now, we put in place the change management process that's supposed to protect us from that, but then the change management process becomes too draconian and overbearing. So we can do change in a much, much more effective way. But we have to capture what changes are going on, and change is something that's going to happen more frequently, and it's going to happen all the time. And even in the world of retail, the golden rule used to be that during the Christmas shopping season in the retail world, you didn't touch anything, because if you did, you were going to goof it up and take the systems down. But the retailers of the modern era are making changes like crazy during that time. They have to, because they are adapting to the changes in the marketplace. And the changes that you're going to be experiencing more and more frequently are going to come from technology change, but also business change. And if you don't think the business change is going to impact you in the technology world, you got another thing coming. But in the technology world, obviously we keep coming up with new technology. Now one of the cool things is the hyper-converged systems. But Internet of Things, I believe, is going to upset the apple cart more than anything ever has. The economics of that stuff is getting to a point where it may seem silly to put an IP address in a light bulb, but it is now possible. And when it's possible at that price point, people are going to do it. And we're going to come up with new business applications and new purposes for technology that we never thought about. I want to wire up my dog so I know where he is. It's getting to that level of almost absurdity. Devops throws a new wrench in the works because now we're speeding up the delivery of technology into production. Cloud, of course, is taking the world by storm, And everything that we're talking about is highly automated. One reason is because we got to get rid of the human error. A lot of times, human error is our biggest issue here in the world of change. On the business side, customer demands change. We're using business intelligence to find out new angles to twist our business attack on the marketplace and to go out and earn more revenue. The competition is changing, so that means we've got to adapt more quickly. The regulators step in every now and then because somebody nasty is goofing everything up for everybody else. The economic conditions, whether it's an earthquake in Nepal or discontent in the Ukraine or whatever, maybe just general economic conditions between countries around the world is going to change business conditions. And here again, human error is going to mess things up. So, the human factor is not to be ignored. And one of the reasons is, as things do change, the humans are unable to look at this stuff and make sense of it. Now, Sesame Street had this little game. One of these things is not like the other. It was real easy because it was for kids. This one is a lot more subtle. These 4 things are all the same except for one little minor detail. But that little minor detail can kill you. And that little detail, if you dig in, you find, oh, there's a missing connection, a missing relationship in this third cluster. And that's not something you're going to find visibly. That's something you need help with, especially if you've got 10,000 of these things and 4 of them are different in 4 different ways. There's no way any human being is going to find that. But it's really easy if you're using automated discovery and automated analytics. And this is going to help you keep your sanity and help maintain the integrity of the services you're delivering. A lot of people say, well, we're applying automation to this, therefore we're getting the human out of the equation, so we're going to be good, right? Well, almost, if you are in a perfect world. And let's face it, I don't know about the world you live in, but the world I live in is far from perfect. Automated actions do help prevent these unwelcome changes. When something changes, it's changing for a reason. It's being changed by a piece of software. And the software is probably not going to goof it up like a human being is going to goof it up. So in that sense, yes, it helps. But a lot of what we do is still going to remain manual. We are not going to automate everything. Not everything is automatable. And anywhere the human beings get involved, you're going to have issues. And what happens is we're really just moving this problem up the abstraction chain. If you look at the abstraction chain, you start with the infrastructure at the bottom. You go up to applications, the business services, the business processes, and so on up the top. Down at the bottom, we can apply a lot of automation at the infrastructure layer. It gets a lot harder as you move up the stack, and changes can happen up the stack. Those changes are going to be done by human beings, not by automation. So we are going to need some way to analyze the results of our actions for a long, long time, certainly for as long as I'm alive. And if we really want to start making some use of analytics, regardless of whether the execution is automated or not, it's going to help us make better decisions to drive our design process. And so I want to hit a little bit on that. The photo here is of the Empire State Building, 1945. A B-25 bomber crashed into it, and the building withstood because it was built to withstand such things. This is an aspect of all great things in the world. All of the great things like skyscrapers and bridges and aircraft. Failure happens, so you've got to prepare for these things. You've got to design to withstand the failures that you're going to anticipate, and even some that you can't possibly anticipate. Use your imagination. It's the age-old argument of let's do fire prevention, not firefighting. And the bottom line here is good design. And analytics helps you do this. We're not yet to the point where we can use analytics in the sense that Boeing can simulate an entire airplane before they ever put a pilot in the cockpit. But we're getting there, and we can start using it for design assistance today. This is really what we're talking about when we say proactive management. This is how we make things great. And good design doesn't have the silos. Traditional IT, we've got the silos where we do a lot of great stuff in the silos, but we are, as I like to say, locally brilliant and globally stupid. And the results speak for themselves. If we're not working as an entire system, things break. However, if you've ever driven a BMW, you know what good engineering is. You can feel it. And it's optimized. A BMW is optimized as an entire unit for the full experience. Yes, there are engine designers and transmission designers and body designers, but it's all treated as a full system. And this is what we're talking about. This is systems engineering, where you treat everything together as an entire experience. And the ultimate driving machine, you can make the ultimate technology machine by following some of the same principles. And all of this, whether you are looking at this from the after effects of something has gone wrong, or if you're looking at it from the design perspective, you're going to have a lot of tools. And these tools all have specific tasks. You're not going to hammer a nail into a wall with a pair of pliers. Well, I've done it, but it's only for like a little finishing nail to hang a picture. You're not going to build a house that way. So don't try to use the wrong tool. Use them for what they're there for. But then you also combine them together into your toolbox, so you have a full set of tools that's going to be everything you need to complete the job. And you're going to apply the analytics to that same consolidated view. Analytics in pockets is going to be useful, but analytics as a combined view of everything, this consolidated perspective, is going to be immensely powerful. And we're getting to a point now where that's possible. So if you combine your analytics, you're going to win in this game, because you are going to have the visibility that will give you the unknown unknowns. So this dude has freed himself from the silo chaos monster. Either that, or he's stuck in the desert and just delirious from the heat. But nevertheless, he looks happy. But to get yourself freed from this chaos monster, consolidate your tools. That's a given. That's something we and others have been preaching for years. Bring analytics into the equation, because, no offense to you, you're not smart enough. None of us is. So the tools have to help us. And to gain that right insight, we've got to get the right kind of context. And the tools can help you do that, but it still comes down to you understanding what you're trying to do. And let's get a lot smarter about change, because change is a mess. I don't care how good your process is, it's probably a mess. And your application developers probably don't like it because it's too slow. And in the end, let's just make sure we build things properly from the beginning. Good things, good designs don't break nearly as often. So we don't have to worry about fighting fires. We can take care of it through fire prevention. And what we're really trying to get at here is no silos, no noise. You'll have a nice clean signal, and all will be well. Or it will certainly be far better than it is today. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Glenn. That was very interesting. I'm going to be taking back the screen now. And we'll be continuing with Sasha. And I'll be handing over the controls to Sasha, and he'll be presenting his perspectives on blended analytics. Sasha, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. So, first of all, I would like to thank Glenn for a very insightful session. And there was a variety of valuable points Glenn have addressed, but I still would like to reiterate the key 3 highlights that actually define our Evolvent's approach to IT operations analytics. First of all, you have mentioned that IT is operating in silos, and I can tell that I was personally involved in a number of severe incident investigations with our customers over the last few weeks. And if you want to get information about the storage, you need to ask an infrastructure guy to get the right data. Most probably he will use some specialized tool, will be NetApp tool, EMC tool, and so on. A network team will be looking into data provided by network management tools. An application team will be using some kind of APM solution, AppDynamics, New Relic, Dynatrace, something like that. And if they want to know what changed in the environment, because you mentioned the change, they first will be calling a change manager that will look into service desk, and then everyone else in the organization to actually understand what happened. And the second, that analytics without the context is a noise. Absolutely. Knowing that there is an anomaly in your machine data can be very useful to start an investigation. But then you need to understand the source of the anomaly, its impact, and eventually the root cause. So you need to know the context. And then, of course, the change. Understanding the change is critical. This is our deepest belief. This is a primary driver for evolving technology. And I will talk in greater depth about how we use changes in our analytics. But the key underlying principle of our approach is that most of the operational issues can be explained by change. And recently, with the evolution of security space, the change-driven approach also applies to security issues as well. So, what do we propose in Evolving to break the silos, provide the context, and leverage the changes? So we came up with a blended analytics approach to address requirements that Glenn identified earlier for effective ITOA solutions. First of all, we need to look at the entire picture to break the silos. That means to look at the multiple sources of IT operational data coming from different silos, from different areas in the organization. We believe that data generated and used by IT operations can be split in three groups. The first group is the most explored, up to date. Is a group of we call symptoms. By definition, symptoms indicate some undesirable conditions, diseases, sickness. In this case, of your IT systems and environments. There could be symptoms pointing to stability issues, performance issues, security issues, and so on. Symptoms can be found in application, system, network monitoring data, and logs, and similar machine data. The challenge is that the industry focuses today on symptoms, which are extremely important to understand that there is going to be an issue. However, symptoms do not answer the question of the root cause of the issues they point to. The second group is contextual information. This information is essential to map analysis to IT operational activities that create or are impacted by issues. You also need context to interpret results of any analysis in comprehensible terms. IT context can be derived from information like deployment information, service and change requests, environment, topology, dependencies, etc., produced and managed by solutions like deployment automation tools, service desk, CMDB, and so on. The last, but definitely not least, is the third group, the changes. Right, so as I have mentioned, we in Evolving believe that changes are a primary root cause of IT operational issues. So why? Because one of the first questions, and Glenn actually mentioned it, you typically ask when there is an issue in IT environment is what changed. If nothing changes, probably the root cause is a hardware failure. This is not new to the industry. It's not new to the IT organization, neither to IT tools vendors. However, knowing exactly what changed is extremely difficult. What piece of code, what parameter in configuration, what data table, what part of schema was changed as a result of some automated or manual action, which could be authorized or not. Today, and I work with hundreds of organizations, very few organizations can claim that they have such complete knowledge of everything that changes in their environment. Thus, both IT organizations and vendors focus on symptoms because this information is much more accessible. It is important to know that when speaking about the change, we mean change in a wide sense, including application code, change in application code, change in application environment configuration, changes in application data, in system capacity, in the workload, all parts of the environment state. And we believe that 95% of all the issues can be typically explained by a change in one of these dimensions. So now even if you have all the right data, you need analytics to make sense of it, even just because of the amount of the data that you need to process. We do not have time to dive into all the analytics algorithms that are implemented by Evolving, but if you wish to get more technical details, you can find them in our data science zone accessible through Evolving's website. At the higher level, there are two primary tasks our analytics execute. First, to prepare data collected from various data sources for analysis, and then to calculate an integrated risk score of changes based on properties of the changes and their correlation to the symptoms information and relevant IT context. So what it actually means. So when we speak about the preparation of the data, it's meaning data cleansing and correlation. So we need to eliminate all irrelevant, low significance data in each data stream. With either the stream being changes, IT context information, or symptoms coming from APM, log, and other data sources. We need to cluster similar events and key performance indicators for more accurate and efficient analysis. Like, for example, if you have related changes, it's better to analyze them together as a single, a single unit, single group, rather than considering each change independently. Then we need to normalize data from each data source to some common standard, common format to allow the correlation. And then finally, we need to correlate data within and between multiple data streams. We need to correlate it to the change. And then when the data is ready, the analytic engine goes and calculates risk score for each change dimension and each data stream. Now, an example could be, is a change consistent? How frequent is a change? Does a change correlate with some APM alert or with some log errors? Now, all this plays into the risk score calculation. And then we also look for detect anomalies or certain patterns in the overall data that can raise or lower the risk score of the changes. On top of that, we leverage out of the box and custom knowledge base that contains impact parameters of certain changes to fine-tune the analysis. So let's summarize all the said, all the details in the said above in a coherent model of our blended analytics. So first of all, we extract change, symptoms, and IT context data from existing IT management and automation tools. We also collect change information that is not available in the existing tools, like, for example, information about granular configuration and changes happening in granular configuration. Then data coming from each data stream, being this external tool or Evolvin itself, is cleansed, condensed, and normalized. Relevant data is correlated. The result is processed by an analytics engine that calculates individual risk score for each change property and correlated data stream. The engine looks for anomalies, assigning them the highest risks, and then we also provide the knowledge base, as we mentioned, that can be customized by each organization for their specific environments. Machine learning is applied to recognize repeating data patterns, influencing level of the change risk. And in the end, an integrated risk score is calculated for each change that helps to indicate those changes and highlights those changes could be a root cause of an investigated incident or a potential issue. So before I jump into demo, I would like to give also some background information about Evolvin. We are developing the analytics approach for quite some time, and our technology today is deployed in a variety of large and medium to large enterprises in their production and pre-production environments, analyzing information coming from thousands and tens of thousands of the servers, network devices, and storage devices. We have, working with these customers for quite some time, we have evidence of the success and impact, positive impact we bring to the stability and performance of their environment. We have, strong industry support, both coming from experts and analysts like Glenn, but also the recognition, from we are a finalist of Red Herring Top 100 Startup Awards. We're selected by CIO Review as one of top 20 HP most promising partners, and there is numerous references in media to Evolvin technology and to Evolvin's approach. So at this point, let's go to the demo to quickly show you what actually this story is about. What is the technology implementing this approach? So let me just first of all to explain the screen you see in front of us. The application, Evolvin application, has a web interface, and you see here is the analytics console. Right now, we see the first at the top of the screen, we see correlated data streams, including deployment information, in this example coming from CA Nolio deployment automation tool. The changes, the colored bars, the changes coming from the detected by Volven as the detailed changes in application, in infrastructure, in their configuration. We see APM alerts as they are reported by APM tools, and we see in this case log information, log events, highlighted log events coming from a log analysis tool, in this case Splunk. So let's take a situation, we can see here that there is a particular Splunk alert. So let's first of all dive into the related information. Let's drill down. And we'll see that there is a number of changes, it's a large environment, a number of changes were happening, prior, during, and after the alerts. So first of all, let's see what the alert is about. So we see that actually there were errors detected in transaction log and indicated actually that certain transaction was failing. So let's see what kind of changes are correlating to this error. And we see now a number of bars highlighted. Now these are colored bars, so green, yellow, and red means the level of the risk that our analyst is calculating for these changes. So let's focus obviously on the high risk changes, and let's see what we have here. So there are 3 changes that appear to be critical, and they also appear to be inconsistent and obviously unauthorized, so they were not confirmed by any service request or automated deployment, and they correlate to Splunk. So let's click on this bar and focus on the investigation of these changes. So now in the middle of the screen we see 3 donuts representing different aspects of the changes. First of all, we see what kind of environments were affected by the changes. We see this a Microsoft SQL database and the Windows operating system. We also can go and see what are actually types of changes that were implemented in this environment. We see that there were 2 changes affecting services, Windows services, and 1 affecting the view in the Microsoft SQL database. So now we can just click on the view and see that a new view was recently created within the database, which definitely can explain certain performance issue with the transaction. On the other hand, we can go also and see the change in the infrastructure, and we see that there is a number of new servers that were introduced, that were disabled before, and now they are up and running. So that immediately, this question of what changed and what are the relevant changes is eliminated. You have all the information. So when in the war room, you have experts representing each group, analyzing the data together, either virtually or being present physically. They have all the data as a single pane of glass, with risk already prepared for them, so that they know where to focus their investigation. Actually, going and looking at the predictive aspects of the analytics, we can take a different look at the data. One of the things that we can do once we actually select a Splunk alert, we can see that while we have the data that happened before the alert, there are also changes recognized as similar to the changes that were causing the alert. So even when we look in the future, we can see what are the changes that are similar to the ones that were causing alerts, causing problems in the past, and we can estimate that could be potentially risky for these environments. So we can use the data for descriptive analysis, for reactive incident investigation, but also proactively looking for the high-risk changes that can potentially impact stability of your environment. So to summarize, the most important is that it's time to break the silos. There is this consolidated blended analytics approach that allows you to take data from multiple sources coming from different silos and make sense out of them so that it will be a single pane of glass shared by all the silos. We need to get cured from the symptompia, the focus on the symptoms, and focus on the changes that are the primary root cause of the operational and security issues. Now, there is a lot of data, and with the current level of development of machine learnings and other analytics algorithms, you can make sense out of this data, however complex and large and big this data is. And what we can say is that applying this approach, we're able to achieve proven game-changing results with a number of major organizations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sasha. That was very interesting, and it was a fascinating look at these developments in analytics. Now, we are going to open the floor to questions and answers. So let's go ahead and see what kind of questions have been building up. First, Sasha, what data sources does Evolvin analyze?
So we analyze, first of all, the information about the changes, either coming from external tools, information about the changes in capacity, in the workload, as well as the information we collect on our own as changes in application, changes in environment configuration, while correlating this data with external data sources, bring information about the system performance, like APM tools, about the information kept in the environment and application logs, tools like Splunk, Elasticsearch, Logly, and so on, as well as IT context information coming from tools like Service Desk, like ServiceNow, for example, CMDBs, and so on. So generally, it's a variety of IT management, monitoring, and automation tools.
Okay, and who's the anticipated audience of this information?
So what we find is that information is actually useful across the organization. And first and foremost, operation teams can benefit in use cases like incident investigation or incident prevention. But we saw also, it's information used by Devops to ensure that their continuous delivery and continuous integration processes run smoothly and deliver, expected results. We see it used by for compliance and audit. We see this used by even by testing teams to actually know what happens, what kind of changes are introduced for them, so they know actually what should be tested, and so on and so on. So while primarily we work today with the operations, we see data used by across the entire IT organization.
Do you expect tools such as AppDynamics to feed this, as opposed to being the tool that does this?
So AppDynamics is a very good question, and AppDynamics has a very in-depth knowledge about the transactions, transaction response time, and the area where transactions are, for example, slowing down and supporting information. They don't have information about the change. That's not something that's the kind of information they are processing. So we here an opportunity, what we do today, of actually correlating the data, being able to extract data from AppDynamics analytics, the symptoms data, correlate this back with the changes, and send it back also to AppDynamics to help them to link symptoms to the root cause.
Okay, what about CMDB integration? Does this tool integrate with CMDBs?
Absolutely. And it's again, with any tool we have a bidirectional integration. In this case, we take out of CMDB topology and dependency information, and from our side, what we bring, we enrich this information with very detailed information about environment configuration, as well as risk assessment of the granular changes that we detect in the environment.
Okay, and Glenn, we have a question for you. How mature should my monitoring and automation infrastructure be to implement analytics?
Well, you can benefit from analytics at any stage of your evolution. When you're first getting started, you've got some very basic tools. Feeding those tools or augmenting or replacing those tools with some sort of analytics component is going to bring you a lot of value. Obviously, you get the most value once you kind of graduate to the higher levels of enlightenment. Specifically, as you start consolidating that visibility into more of a global view of things, looking at things in pockets is useful, but looking at it as an overall system is immensely useful.
Okay, thank you. We've got more questions piling in. How is this different from the CA APM suite that is supposed to do this, analytics that is? Sasha, can you address that?
Sure. So analytics is a widely used term, and there is a number of analytics tools today available in the market. So the question is again, what data they analyze and how. The difference between Evolve and CA APM approach is that our focus and our belief is on change as an entry point for the analysis. You need to start from the root cause and then map the symptoms and IT context to this root cause. While the CA APM suite actually focuses on analysis and reverse engineering of the symptoms, such as performance and availability information.
Okay, great. And do you support cloud and new technologies like Docker?
Absolutely. Actually, we see the pace of changes and complexity increasing. On one hand, the flexibility and the speed enabled by technologies, by various cloud technologies, is amazing. At the same time, you have higher frequency of the changes and higher level of complexity. So with the implementation of this technology, there is also a need for automated control, automated visibility into this environment. So yes, we do have support for a variety of cloud technologies, including Dockers.
Okay, and Sasha, is Evolve cloud or on-premise based?
We have actually both options. Our technology, and it's absolutely the same technology, could be delivered on-premise or as a SaaS, depending on the requirements of the customer.
And can you integrate with a ticketing system?
Absolutely. We both use this information for incident investigation, actually mapping the changes, the high-risk changes and related information to the tickets, as well as we can raise a ticket proactively when we detect a high-risk change.
Okay, and Glenn, another question in your direction. So if we break all the silos, who's going to own and handle the resulting analytics insights?
Everybody. Well, as we break down the silos, what we're going to find is a different landscape, a different organizational structure within IT, because you're not going to have necessarily the server team and the storage team and so on. That's all going to be unified into a consolidated engineering team. And in fact, if you fast forward, it makes a whole lot of sense. Now, this is heresy to some, but it makes a whole lot of sense to combine infrastructure engineering with application development. But it's going to happen. And, they will be consumers of this information. The tools themselves are consolidating into a common entity in the best run organizations. We call it the automation center. You can call it your tools team, whatever the case may be. But these will be the people who will be driving all of that analytics, or at least responsible for it. Everybody has a say in it because you're going to be capturing context from a lot of people, including from the brains of some of your smart people. Everybody's involved, but there will be distinct ownership of different aspects of it.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Another question for you, Glenn. How would you sell the value of this type of solution to the CFO?
Well, CFOs are concerned about three things: money, money, and money. Money coming in, money going out. The obvious thing is that it will be a cost-saving measure, and it's actually fairly straightforward to make a cost-saving argument because we can quantify the amount of waste that's going on in our technology management functions. We estimate about 75 to 80% of the total technology budget goes towards babysitting, care and feeding of the technology, much of which is wasted. And there are ways of measuring that. So cost savings is an obvious one. But as we move forward, it's less and less about cost savings and more about how are we going to help the business win, retain, and serve customers. How are we going to affect the top line, not just that bottom line? And to do that, it's a little more difficult. But as we look at increasing our agility, having that situational awareness to do things faster, to deliver things faster, to deliver things more accurately, to increase the experience of our customers. Those things are less easy to calculate, but you can calculate them nonetheless. And we at Forrester have done a lot of work on that front.
Okay, thanks. All right, we're going to come to the end here, so I'm going to get one more question in for Sasha. How is Evolvin implemented? What do you have there to gather the information?
Say it again. Can you just repeat the question, Martin?
Yeah, is this implemented by probes? How is it iterating to everything?
I see. Okay, so there are a few, again, the implementation consists of two parts. One, to collect information, which is, again, could be uniquely collected by Evolvin only, like, for example, granular configuration. Indeed, we have the probes that need to be deployed. However, collecting external information, like APM alerts, like log errors, like service requests or change requests from service desk, is all done through the APIs. Essentially, all of the modern existing tools have, this or, typically REST APIs that we use for this integration.
Okay. Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting session. And I just wanted to thank everybody for participating and for your attendance. I want to let you know, feel free to drop me a line. I'm martin@evolvin.com with any questions or feedback. I'm happy to hear about how things went. And just like to say, on behalf of our team, I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We'll be sending a copy of this presentation and a link to the recording so you can see this or share it with your friends. Also, you want to learn more, just look at the screen here. We have a number of different options. You can contact us for a one-on-one session or sign up for a free trial at Evolvin, and contact us at our sales email. And be sure to follow Evolvin on Twitter. We're very active there, and you can see all of our latest updates and insights. So once again, thank you very much to everybody. Thanks, Sasha and Glenn.
Pleasure, Martin.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be signing off now. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.